Hello everybody, welcome back to UK Gaming Network, and welcome. This is UKGN Waffles, our podcast where we discuss all the games that we've been playing and various goings on in the world of gaming. And this is actually a belated welcome to 2025, because this is actually our first episode since naming Balatro as our Game of the Year for 2024 back at the end of December. And joining me for this episode, as always, we have UKGN Teru. Welcome, Teru.
Hello.
And so 2025 has gotten off to a fairly slow start. We had originally intended to do this at the end of January, but there weren't really enough games to talk about at that point. And even doing it now, it's only really been the last 2 weeks of February when things have really started to hot up in terms of releases. So apart from that, though, we have had a brand new developer direct from Xbox. We've had a state of play from PlayStation, and we've had finally had the reveal of the Switch 2. Although we're going to be getting more details of that one in April. How have you found the year so far, Teru?
I've been very lucky with the games that have been coming out. Yeah, it's essentially gone, let's pack all the games in that, that I'm going to like at the end of January and start of February. And yeah, I've been a busy bitch with all the games I've been playing.
Okay, so what we've decided that we're going to do with these podcasts from now is we're actually going to rank the games as we talk about them and say whether or not you should be buying them straight away or waiting for a sale or whatever. And for the purposes of this first attempt at doing this, we will use the same ranking system that I use for my Retro Game Super Leagues video of essential, recommended, good, poor or rubbish, because I think that's a simple way to go about it. But if you can think of 5 different categories that we could use, please do feel free to suggest them in the comments, and we will take them under advisement. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the games that we have played. So this is not a definitive list of all the releases that have come out. It's just the ones that we have had the time to play ourselves. There are games that have come out in the first 2 months of the year that we don't feel we've had enough time to play, so we're not going to discuss those until future episodes. But we're going to go through these in release order. I think that's the easiest thing to do. So let's kick things off with The Legend of Cyber Cowboy, which actually came out right the way back on the 1st of January. It was released by East Asia Soft, and we did actually receive a key for it off the publisher, so that's why we were able to play it. And it's a fairly bog standard top-down shooter roguelike. Very much gave me similar vibes to Enter the Gungeon from years ago. But all it essentially made me think was that I wished I was playing Enter the Gungeon instead. I don't even think, from talking to Pad about it, I don't even think it's a game for achievement hunters. And I know you haven't played it, Teru, so let's keep the discussion of it brief. And I will just stick it straight in the poor category.
I completely forgot that even existed.
What we are going to do in these videos is we are going to talk about games in early access. Now, normally we don't. Games in early access will not be eligible for Game of the Year come the end of the year, unless they have come out of early access before 31st of December. So that brings us on to Assetto Corsa EVO, which came out on the PC back in January. Been released in early access. It's only got a couple of tracks available, but if you are in any way familiar with the Assetto Corsa series, then you will know exactly what to expect from this one. I've enjoyed what I've played of it, although I am playing it with a joypad. I should probably just highlight that, because I know a lot of the sim racers would demand that you play it with a steering wheel, but with a joypad I've found it to be fairly enjoyable. It lacks the instant gratification of something like Gran Turismo for me, but I think that's what the sim fans like. So in its current state, I'm going to put it in the recommended category. I think it's worth a look, and going off how I've experienced early access titles in the past, it's probably worth buying now because the price will be more expensive after it does actually hit full release. So I'm going to stick this one in the recommended category. Next, we come to a game called Blade Chimera, which came out on the 16th of January. This was released on the PC and the Switch, and it is a really entertaining 2D Metroidvania. And I know there are a lot of these on the market. So yeah, this is from a developer called Ladybug, who I have followed for a while because they did a side-scrolling shooter called Dranius that came out on the PC and Switch as well, and was one of the better retro-style side-scrolling shooters around. And this one has got some really stylish gameplay in it as well. I've really enjoyed what I've played of it so far. And for me, I am going to stick this one up in the recommended category as well. Shall we move on to a game that you will have played, so that way you can actually talk about something as well?
Go on.
So I'll skip past Donkey Kong and I'll come back to that one in a minute. And instead, we will talk about a game that came out on the same day, which was Lonely Mountains Snow Riders, which came out on Xbox Game Pass. And this is a sequel to a game that came out, I think, about 4 years ago now, which was a mountain bike racing game with minimalist 3D graphics. And this sequel replaces the mountain bike with a set of skis. And basically you have to race down the slopes, and there's multiple routes that you can take, loads of shortcuts you can discover. And I found it to be really entertaining, this one, and I really like the minimalist graphics and the way that you leave your path in the snow. I know you have played this one, so what did you think?
I did enjoy it. I did find it a little bit frustrating, but considering the path you can take, it's not necessarily linear at all. Yes, the start's always the same and the end's always the same, but how you get there is always down to your own skill. And that you've got your different type of control schemes, because I think when we played it, it was just like, and we switched it between us, it's like we couldn't remember how to play because we both picked a different control scheme for it.
Yes.
And
it's a directional one where your skier will move in whatever direction you are pointing the joystick, and then there is a standard rotational one that a lot of arcade racing games have used in the past. And I think I preferred the latter.
Yeah, and I picked the directional one. I'm really impressed with the map of the different slopes that you got to go down, because it can be as easy or as hard as you want it to be. And the only thing that it's going against you is the time it's taking you to get through all the different sections of the mountain. It is really well done, but just a little bit frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, I do like the freedom that the game gives you. I mean, obviously there are checkpoints that you have to hit, but there's a sizable chunk of mountain between each of the checkpoints. So if you spy a gap between trees and think you can go for it, then the game's not going to stop you from trying. The fact that it's on Game Pass, I think, is the reason why we have both played this one.
Yep.
Whether or not I would recommend you buying it if you don't have access to Game Pass, I'm not 100% certain about. So I think I would put this in the good category. How about you?
Yeah, definitely good. It's definitely worth giving it a go because it is on Game Pass.
Right, so let's put this one in good rather than recommended. So let's do that.
What about Donkey Kong, since it was the same day?
Yeah, so let's just quickly talk about Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, which came out on the Switch. Remake of the original Donkey Kong Country Returns, which came out on the Wii. Right, not even the Wii U. This one. That's how old the original Donkey Kong Country was. Which was Retro Studios' update of the classic SNES series, and when it came out on the Wii, it was hugely impressive. I think this remake is a little bit out of date, especially considering that Nintendo have already done a remake of Tropical Freeze on the Switch, which is a much more glossy game in every way. It's still a decent platform game, but I don't think I personally don't think that the Donkey Kong Country games rank up there with the Mario series as a Nintendo property. They're entertaining enough, but it's not something that I would ever reach for if I was going to play an old retro platform. I don't think I would even reach for the old SNES ones, to be honest. Because I also think that as remakes go, it's definitely overpriced. Because considering how old the original game was, like I say, came out on the Wii, I really don't think this one should cost more than 20 quid, and yet they're trying to charge 40 for it. For me, I can't put this one any higher than the good category. So that's where I'm putting it. Let's move on to the next game then, shall we? Which was the big surprise of Xbox's Developer Direct, which was the shadow drop of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which came out straight to Game Pass, and the day before, nobody even knew that it was coming. This is an updated, glossy remake of the Ninja Gaiden sequel that came out on the Xbox 360 way back when. The Ninja Gaiden series has always been a series where the quality has gotten slightly lower with each subsequent sequel. So the original Ninja Gaiden is an absolute classic as far as I'm concerned. Ninja Gaiden 2 is still a good game, but I still prefer the original. But this Ninja Gaiden 2 Black version is definitely an improvement on the original Xbox 360 one. I mean, it looks absolutely fantastic in the 4K that it's now available in, and some of the HDR lighting is fantastic. But I think the gameplay goes a little bit too far with the amount of blood that it plasters the screen with, because the original Ninja Gaiden didn't do that. I
made the comment about the Monty Python Black Knight. It's just like
Yes.
all the enemies, arms falling off. It's just a flash wound.
Yes, they will just continue fighting.
Yes.
I will admit that I am a little bit concerned for Ninja Gaiden 4 because it's been so long since Ninja Gaiden 3. But Ninja Gaiden 3 was easily the worst of the original trilogy. So like I said, the quality has gone down. The only thing that gives me a little bit of hope for Ninja Gaiden 4 is the fact that it's Platinum Games that are working with them along in creating it. And we all know what Platinum are capable of when it comes to hack and slash action games like that. Bayonetta.
In the business.
But but I'm not here to talk about Ninja Gaiden 4. I think Ninja Gaiden 2 is, like Donkey Kong, massively overpriced if you are a PlayStation owner. I mean, on Xbox you get it as part of your Game Pass subscription. On PlayStation you have to pay 50 quid for it, which is far too much in my opinion. It's still worth playing though, so I'm going to stick this one in the recommended. I have one other game that came out on the same day as that, on the 23rd of January, and that was the early access release of Tokyo Xtreme Racer on Steam, which is Genki's longer-awaited restarting of their franchise that dates way back to the PlayStation 1. I think I played the original Tokyo Xtreme Racer back on the PS2, and there hasn't been an entry in this series for at least 15 years now. And in gameplay terms, the game hasn't advanced really in any way. It's still exactly the same as it was. Some people, that's exactly what they want. For me, I think I probably want a little bit more out of it. I do like the fact that you can choose your entry point onto the highways of Tokyo as they open up on the map, and then you just catch up to your opponents, flash your headlights at them, and then try and beat them in a one-on-one race through traffic. It's entertaining in short bursts, but I don't think I would want to play it for an extended period of time. So in its current state, I don't know what they're planning, like I say, it's in early access. I don't know what they're planning for a full release, like in terms of extra content, because it seems like all of the track is here already. But I will still keep an eye on it because it's a racing game, and we all know how much I like them. But for now, I'm going to stick this one in the good category. So now we get to move on to a game that you have definitely played, which was released on the 28th of January, and that's Eternal Strands, which came out on Game Pass from a new studio called Yellow Brick Games, which is made up of former Dragon Age team members, I believe. I've not played this one myself. I do like the graphical style of it, though. It looks very pretty, but I'll let you... I'll open up the floor to yourself to talk about this one, Teru.
Yeah, this has been a definite surprise for me because it's just like, oh, I'll give it a go because it's on Game Pass. I was absolutely gobsmacked about how much I wanted to keep playing it. You're essentially
this is the reason why we're not going to be talking about Avowed in this episode, because because you've been wanting to play Eternal Strands instead. But we will come back to Avowed at a later date, I promise.
Yeah. So with Eternal Strands, it's a action adventure game. You play as a single character. You have these abilities as a weaver, which is essentially a magical person. You're a scout, or from the terminology of the game, you're a point, and you go around and you collect resources because of events that have happened. You unravel the mystery of the area that you tend to find yourself in, and you go through it all, and it's just such a good game. It's almost like baby's first Monster Hunter, because for a lot of the quests that you do, it doesn't matter what materials you're collecting, it's just the type of material. It's very rare for it to actually ask for a specific, which makes it so much easier to enjoy, because it's not a case of, oh, I have to do this in this very specific time of day and defeat that type of monster. That only happened once where it got frustrating, but that it was completely optional, and it was very much towards the end of the game. Combat could have done with a little bit more fine-tuning, but the main focus of the combat is actually the massive archons, are what they're called, or the massive beasts that you fight, not your regular, dog-type creatures that you come across or anything like that.
Yeah. It looked like there was a little element of Shadow of the Colossus.
Definitely. If it wasn't for all the material collecting that you do, I was initially going to go, oh, it's just like Shadow of the Colossus, but no, you're leaning a little bit more towards the Monster Hunter type of game. But yeah, it was just so damn good, and I was just so surprised how much I enjoyed playing it, because it's just like, oh, here's another game that, give it a go because it's on Game Pass. Oh my god, this is amazing. Can I keep playing it, please? And Avowed came out, and I'm just like, okay, start playing Avowed. And part of the reason why I kept going back to Eternal Strands is because Avowed crashed on me. So it's just like, oh, it crashed. All right, I'll play Eternal Strands instead. So it's got that going for it. It didn't crash on me once. So yeah, I would highly recommend Eternal Strands.
Essential then?
Very much so.
So next up we have the console release of Turbo Overkill, which came out on the PC last year, I believe. And this is another of the swelling ranks of boomer shooters that are coming out on consoles and PC. Moves at a breakneck pace. There's lots of enemies to blast your way through, but I found this one to be a little bit boring, and I think that comes down to the level design. I didn't like the amount of trudging back through areas that you've already been through that the game seems to require you to do, and the weapons themselves lack personality. They just seem to be like your generic shotgun and generic machine guns. There's very little along the lines of like the BFG from Doom or the Redeemer from Unreal. Just fantastic weapons that you want to use. It didn't seem like it had any of those. So it's mildly entertaining, but I think if you're into these kinds of games, it's nowhere near up to the same quality of Parodius or is it Warhammer Bolt Gun that came out. Those two games were both much more entertaining than this one for me. So I am going to stick this one... I don't think it's quite bad enough to go down in the poor, so I'm going to stick this one in the good category. Next up is the latest entry in Rebellion's X-ray shooter series, shall we say, Sniper Elite. This is Sniper Elite Resistance, which again we only really played because it came out on Game Pass. As entertaining as the Sniper Elite games are, I don't think that there's anything in this one that you've not already seen before in one of the previous entries. And I didn't find that the character that you play as in this one had anywhere near the personality of the central character from Sniper Elite 5. But having said that, there's always something incredibly satisfying about watching a slow motion bullet of yours rip somebody's jaw off.
Yeah, the original X-ray fatality.
It's just a shame that the series doesn't seem to have innovated in any way since the last entry. So it's very handsome. The locations all look suitably realistic. I think for another Sniper Elite game, the developers are going to have to mix up the formula a little bit. I think to make me want to play it. So I think this one is also going to go in good for now. Definitely worth a
horrible
look.
Feeling that they might go the Call of Duty route and go, "Hey, Sniper Elite in space."
Fingers crossed they'll go modern before they go into space. Next up, we have Foundation, which came out of early access on the 31st of January, which is a city builder released on Steam that's currently only available on the PC. But I know once again that you have played this one, so tell us all about it.
This is the game that I wish the Settlers that came out, what was it, 2 years ago now?
Settlers New Allies.
Yeah, Settlers New Allies. This is the game I wish that was. Honestly, it feels more like a Settlers game than that did. It's great because I can just set things up and just watch my people go around creating paths and doing their jobs, and it all just comes together, and it's really nice to play, to the point I've got like a massive bridge going over a lake to go onto my next piece of land. I've just been playing it obsessively to the point where I've even ignored the Timberborn experimental update.
There's a game that needs to come out of early access.
Yes. Foundation has beaten Timberborn as it is at the moment, is really saying something, because the amount of time I've played to Timberborn is obsessive.
So where would you put Foundation? Recommended or essential for people first and foremost?
I would go essential.
So let's stick that up there with Eternal Strands then. And then
Yep.
the next game on the list is Sid Meier's Civilization 7. Which has been fairly long awaited, a very popular series. But why don't you tell everybody listening why I am posting back the rental copy already after you've only put a few hours into it?
Got bored.
You played it on Xbox. We should probably point out you didn't play it on the PC.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to innovate an existing IP, which just means that when that does happen, it's even more impressive, because it's just like, oh, you've got this existing idea that's worked really well, and now you've done something new with it, and it's brilliant. With the new Civilization game, it's just more of the same. Admittedly, yes, it's been years since I played the last Civ game, but there was nothing there that made me go, oh, this is brand new, this is doing this, and it's just like, oh, well, those pop-up tutorials, please just go away. I really wanted to say that.
If you've played Civilization 6, there's no point to play this one then, really.
No, and if you've got Civ 6 on PC, then you've probably got access to all the mods that have made it even more interesting. There is nothing wrong with Civ 7. It is a good game, but I can't think of a reason why you'd get it if you've played any other type of Civ game.
Sounds like it should be going in the poor category.
No, because I'm looking at it as somebody who has played a Civ game before. If I hadn't played one before and I was new to, and it was like completely brand new to me, I think I'd be very much impressed. And it's a very well made game. The graphics are good. The AI is reasonable in being your opponents. It's always going to be much more fun when you can get a bunch of your friends together to play it that way.
So if it turned up in a sale at 50% of the asking price that it's currently at, which I think it's currently a 60 quid game, would it be worth buying?
15 quid at most. So that's how much I'd be willing to pay for it.
So good category then?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll stick that in good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on then. We have another retro compilation in the shape of the Tomb Raider 4 to 6 Remastered collection that came out on the 14th of February. This is Tomb Raider The Last Generation, Tomb Raider Chronicles, and Tomb Raider The Angel of Darkness, all bundled together in a remastered collection from the same people that released the Tomb Raider 1 to 3 collection last year. And basically what you get here, from my point of view, you get my favourite Tomb Raider game, my least favourite Tomb Raider game, and a misunderstood Tomb Raider game. Because Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, I've always thought was the best Tomb Raider game that they released on the PS1. And to this day, I still like the fact that it concentrated all of its efforts on one single location rather than having all the globe-trotting that had got a little bit excessive in Tomb Raider 3. So it was a return to Egypt, and basically you spent the entire game exploring one single tomb. Tomb Raider Chronicles I didn't like because it was too disjointed, because it was 4 different stories from different stages of Lara's life. So you had one level on it that was like essentially a haunted house where it was like a teenage Lara that was exploring it. After The Last Revelation, it was a major come down, and I really didn't like that one at all. So that's my least favourite Tomb Raider game. And then there's Tomb Raider The Angel of Darkness, which was the infamous failure on the PS2, which is a game packed full of really good ideas that are, in the most part, badly implemented. And the fact that this remake has updated controls is a godsend as far as Angel of Darkness is concerned, or at least it would be if the game actually told you what each button was. A lot of the time, all 3 Tomb Raider games here will tell you, hold the walk button and then press forward and jump as you get to the end of the platform. The game doesn't actually tell you what the jump button is or what the walk button is. So you are literally pressing every button on the controller to try and work out what button does what. And the number of times that I accidentally fell off a platform really high up and died because I was trying to work out what button I should have been pressing, was really annoying, and it was a really easy fix for the developers. It's like, basically, when you have it come up on screen saying hold the walk button, have the speech still say that, but have the text on screen replace the word walk with an L1 symbol. It's not rocket science.
It's just like, you're so close to having a really good game, and it's like, and then you fall down at the tutorial. And it's one of those things when it comes to tutorials, it's just either do them well or skip them entirely. Do one or the other.
Well, the Tomb Raider games generally do a pretty good job of tutorials, because they follow the Rockstar style of tutorial of not telling you how to do something until you need to know how to do it, rather than just throwing everything at you at once and blinding you with science like a lot of games do. It would have been nice if the game actually told you what button does what, rather than forcing you to have to go into the menu to find out. For the Last Revelation alone, this is going to go in the good category for me.
Despite the tutorial not telling you how to actually do things. You have, to a point, enjoyed the game.
Oh yeah, because it's still Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation, which is still my favourite Tomb Raider game, apart from the modern ones, obviously. Which is probably going to be controversial of me to say so, but I've already been controversial about Donkey Kong, so why not continue the trend? The next game would have been Avowed if we'd had enough time to play it, but we will save that for the next episode of this podcast, when I promise we will have played it more.
Yes, I just want to point out that from what I said earlier during Eternal Strands, it has crashed on me quite a few times, the Xbox version. So hopefully that will be sorted by our next waffle.
That's on Series X.
Yep.
Well, anyway, let's move on to Crossout Resurfaced, which there is a full video of on the channel, because I got sent a key of this one from the publisher as well. This is a remake of the 1990 side-scrolling shooter from Rainbow Arts that was released on the Amiga way back when. As remakes go, it's not a full-blown redo of the entire game, but what it has done, it's improved the quality of life about everything. So back on the Amiga, the game didn't have an auto fire, whereas now it does if you press one of the triggers on your joypad. The shop screen between levels is now much easier to use and navigate, because the game actually gives you more information on the shop screen. And the remix of the already fantastic score sounds even better now than it did back in 1990, and the game gives you the choice of having the original music or the remix music or even the Commodore 64 music as your background music of choice. So if you were a fan of Crossout back in the day, which is not the best side-scrolling shooter on the Amiga, but it's definitely one of the recommended ones, then this is a quality remake of that game.
Sounds like they saw the remit of what they needed to do for this new version and stuck to it and got it down right. So just improve everything on the original.
Yes. And I think I'm going to put this one in the recommended category. So that's all of the new releases that have come out in January and February that we've played. This is going to be the point of the podcast where, in months going forward, we're going to talk about any games that we had not managed to play previously, or have picked up in a sale, or for whatever reason has just arrived for us to play. For this first outing of this section, we only have one game to talk about, which is Rally Arcade Classics, which came out on the PC on Steam back in November last year. But we were fortunate enough to receive a key for. And I've played it a little. It's not massively impressive. It reminds me of a PS2 game more than anything else. I mean, the graphics are pretty basic, but it is a design choice rather than the developers just not being very good. The PS2 aesthetic is what they were going for with the game, not that they weren't trying to make it look like a modern one and then failing miserably. As nice as the cars are to drive, and the handling feels quite nice as like an old Colin McRae style rally game, the stages themselves are way too short. I don't think I've raced a stage in the game that's taken over a minute to get from beginning to end of. And when you consider how long some of the stages are on modern rally games like EA WRC, where there's been stages on that have taken me 13 minutes to get from beginning to end of, and they're entirely stressful the entire time that you're going down them. I just expect a lot more from my racing games. Rather disappointingly, I think I'm going to put this one in the poor category.
I've not picked up anything that's been out previously that I've not talked about before, because I've been quite lucky this month for game releases, and I've got Avowed for next month. But other than that, I've been playing Blatro, our game of the year.
Yes.
quite
which,
often, known especially
which-
now that it's been released on Game Pass.
Which Shadow dropped on Game Pass, but not that really bothers us because we already owned it anyway.
Yeah.
But it now means that all of those people out there who have been thinking, "Oh, I'm not going to play that because it's just a card game," can now have a go and see how wrong they are.
Yeah, they can find out. They can find out why it becomes your personality for a little bit.
Yes. So anyway, yes, let's end the podcast there. In the next month, we will get to playing some Avowed. We've also got Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii to play. I decided not to talk about Lost Records Bloom Rage on this episode because I decided to wait until episode 2 comes out, so that way I can then talk about the whole thing in one go, and I think that's out in April. And we have just had a rental copy of Monster Hunter arrive this morning that we'll probably have a quick go on as well. So
2 Point Museum as well.
Oh yes, and 2 Point Museum is out next week.
Mm-hmm.
So we will definitely have quite a few games to talk about. So we will be back at the start of April to talk about those. If you have enjoyed this video, please make sure you give us a like and subscribe. If you want to get any of our videos early, then for just $1.99 a month you can become a VIP member of the channel, and details of how you can do that are also in the video description. So thank you for joining me, Teru.
You're welcome.
And I will see you next month, and hopefully the viewers will come back then as well. So thank you very much. Until next time, happy retro gaming, everybody, and we'll see you soon.